In this video, I'm going to show you how to disassemble the Nintendo Switch dock in order to give it a good cleaning and to replace the springs if needed. This video may also appeal to people who are just curious to see what's inside the dock. The dock I'm doing this to is the original model, the HAC007. The white dock that's bundled with the OLED model is slightly different. The two are very similar, so it's possible what I'm about to show you will work for that model too. I don't have it on hand, and there's no videos showing a complete teardown of the OLED one yet, so I cannot fully confirm how similar the two are. Just a warning, anytime you're taking apart something, there is a risk you might break something. I'm going to do everything I can to give you the details needed to lower that risk, but I cannot lower it all the way to 0 for you, so please just proceed at your own risk. Let's jump right into it. Open the door and remove these 8 screws. They require a tri-wing screwdriver, size 1.5 millimeter. Size 2.0 works as well if you have that, it's just not an exact fit. Keep your screws organized throughout this video because they're all different shapes and sizes. For instance, the 4 that go here are longer than the ones that go here. Hold the door open like this and pull straight up on it. The whole covering will come off. Next, we need to disconnect this ribbon cable. There's a gate that you have to lift upward first. Then just pull the cable out of the socket. Next, we're going to pop this board out. It's held on by 2 little tabs. Give them a little push outward and it'll come right out. Be careful though, there's 2 tiny wires connected to the back of that board, which go to the LED light. The connector for those wires is tiny and tight, so I'm going to choose not to take it out of the connector. Unless you're going to work on the board itself, it's not very useful to disconnect that connector. If you choose to do it anyway, bear in mind that it may tear off the board. If you're using your fingernails, they might get damaged because of how tight it is. If you use a tool, you risk mangling up the plastic that makes up the connector, so there's not that many good choices here. So I'm just going to let the board dangle off to the side. Next, remove these 9 screws. These can be done with a small Phillips screwdriver. You have to use one with a skinny neck because some of the screws are extremely recessed. If you're finding this video helpful, feel free to hit that like button. Let's continue. Lift up on the plastic and it'll reveal the inner portion of the dock. Here you can see the spring-loaded mechanism that helps ease the switch into the USB-C port. This mechanism may also tell the switch whether or not something is docked in it or not. There are 3 springs inside. Since there's gaps around the mechanism, they're open to the air at all times, so it's possible you might see some debris down in there. So take the time to blow it out or use a toothbrush to clean it out. Springs don't last forever, so be sure to check to make sure they aren't broken or missing. I'm about to show you how to get to them, but note at the time of this video, I have not found anyone selling springs specifically for the Nintendo Switch dock. There are, however, on Amazon, these spring kits that contain a large variety of sizes. Assuming the ones in the dock are standard sizes, you should be able to get replacements from one of those kits. Alternatively, you could find another dock, maybe a broken one, and take the springs out of those. Either way, we're going to take this mechanism apart further, put the board back into position. This will give the wires more slack. Remove the 4 Phillips screws that are at the bottom and just pull it out. 2 of the springs are now accessible. They're just sitting there on some plastic knobs. The 3rd spring is still deep inside. The top piece of the mechanism is loose now as well. We'll just lay that aside. Getting to the 3rd spring is kind of a pain. To make it as easy as possible, we're going to remove the USB port. There's a tiny plastic cover that just slips off. You'll need to remove these 2 tiny screws using a size 0000 Phillips bit. We can now lift the electronics off, and we're left with this piece that has a movable door clamped down onto a strong spring. It's in there very tight, but notice there's a lane for pulling it out. Also notice there's this gap underneath the spring. Take a fork or something similar and push up on the spring. At the same time, tilt that door that's above it and it'll come right out. To put it or another one back in, squeeze it and push it down that lane. If it doesn't go directly into position, take the fork again and push on it, and that'll help you move it into position. So there you go, that's the extent in which I'm going to take it apart. Now I'm going to show you how to reassemble everything. Screw the USB port back on. It's very easy to put it on backward. Make sure the larger row of dots are on the same side as the cable that's coming out. Put the plastic cover back on. The shiny side of it needs to face down. Put the two long springs back onto their knobs. Take the other plastic piece and put it on top of them. This is another part that's easy to put on backward. There's a gap on one side of it, and the ribbon cable needs to go through that gap. Then place it into the slot that's at the bottom of the dock with the ribbon cable facing down. And screw back in the 4 screws that hold it in place. Now you'll need to feed the ribbon cable into the gap on the other side of the dock. The fold in that ribbon cable should look like this. As it comes through the gap, the blue side needs to be facing you. If it's not, you've done the fold incorrectly. Put the plastic piece back on and put these screws back in. The next step might be the hardest part of this whole process, getting the ribbon cable back into the connector and closing the gate on it. It has a tendency not to line up, and it wants to keep slipping back out of the connector. Concentrate on pushing it as straight into the connector as possible. Careful when using tools, because you can create some unnecessary bends in the cable. You'll know when you properly connect it to the port because you'll feel it get tight. When it is in position, close the gate. If you did it right, there should not be any blue showing. Snap the board back into place, put the cover back on, add the 8 screws back into it. Remember that the longer screws go into the raised area here. So that's how you do it, folks. I hope you found this video useful. Have a good day, everybody.